Do you get nervous before you post anything?
Yeah, I was nervous to post that. It got nearly 1 million views, thousands of saves, thousands of likes, and people came for me.
Connor, thank you for sitting down with me. First off, I've always known you as a fitness coach over the past several years, but how would you describe your job nowadays? Because I know it's evolved slightly.
My job, I would say it's changed slightly now in this last year. I would say now I'm more of a facilitator for fitness, whereas previously for the last decade, I've just been teaching classes, and that was my bread and butter. I loved it, loved the performance element. Worked at Barry's for 6 years up until the pandemic, and then started my own business, Grindhouse. Yeah, I mean, I'm a fitness coach by trade. You know, I train clients one-to-one online, gay men. So I write training programs, nutrition plans, and I coach them through it weekly on video calls. So I want to move more into how to facilitate a better relationship with gay men's bodies for the masses.
Right. And why gay men? I know that you are a gay man, so that's a bit of a dumb question, but I'm just interested to know, like, you could just do the general population, but what is it about gay men that that you want to draw your focus into?
Well, first of all, it's a lot about identity for my clients. You know, the fitness industry, predominantly gym culture, more so than class culture, is dominated by extremely masculine, intimidating men. And there's only a handful of gay guys who actually do what I do, the coaching side of things. And so it's very vulnerable to pay money to somebody that you don't know for them to look at you in underwear and to jump on a call with them every single week to talk about your mental barriers in relationship to your body. And for gay people especially, I think that body image issues are magnified. And so having a coach that you can be completely vulnerable and honest with about your relationship to your body and in what environments it shows up, and for that coach to know exactly what you're talking about because they've been through it themselves, and to know exactly what environments you're talking about and your motives behind why you're doing it is super important. So I just feel I have a responsibility in a way to educate and to help gays in a way that straight people couldn't.
And when you say magnified, through talking to your clients and other gay men, what exactly are you talking about? So why is I can't articulate it, but why is the relationship with the body different for gay men, in your opinion?
This is, you know, an observation, you know, so I'm not a psychologist or a sociologist or whatever, but it's a lot around desire. I think that innately we want to be desired by men, obviously, and we can see in media this very specific body type that is championed, right? And wrapped up in all of that is this element of desire. It is this masculine body, and it is something that ignites a sexual feeling within us that we want, but it's not always available to us. And there within, I think, lies this sort of tension where for some people it's the body that they're born with, it's genetics. For some people it is manipulated in that way through steroids. And for some people, they don't want to participate in that lifestyle, but they may still punish themselves by following people with those bodies on social media. And at the crux of it all, as I said, is the desire to either want to have that or to want somebody that looks like that to want you. And that's not the same for everybody, for sure. This is me very much generalizing, but this is from my experience. Like when I was going out in XXL, when I was a little young 20-something-year-old twink, I was looking at these men and I was thinking, they're not looking at me. And I was looking at them and I was going, oh, they're looking at the men that have those bodies. So I think that it can very easily, especially at a young age when you don't have the sort of wisdom yet to analyze your thoughts, you just sort of like observe and you internalize. And then, you know, that just becomes a part of the gay experience for a lot of us.
And that's interesting what you said about, because we, which is different to straight guys, we find the male body hot. So there's that interesting sort of thought that we know what's hot, you know, so we kind of like want to be what we also find hot, you know, like it's weird, you know, when you get you know, if you've ever been asked the question by a straight person, like, have you ever been turned on by yourself? And the answer's kind of like yes sometimes, because you're like,
that's a good thing.
but you're like, it's so weird. It's like when your body feels good after you've gone to the gym, surely there's like a slight element of that. It's like, I feel like the body that I want to touch, like this, you know, that sounds a bit strange, but
well, I think that, you know, I was speaking with a client last week on a video call and he went to feel it for the first time. And he said that it was his insecurities were kicking off. And I was like, why? And he was like, bearing in mind, this guy's got a great body. And he was like, well, I was just looking, there was so many hot guys there and I was looking at them and all my insecurities started kicking in. And I said, but you know that by your standards of what a good body is, the body was better than 80% of the people that were in that club, but you're looking at those who are even better than you and you're punching yourself down. I was like, do you think it's because that is what you desire, and that's what you love, and that's what turns you on? You almost look at yourself in a more negative light because you aren't that.
Have you ever had a boyfriend or a sexual partner and you've compared yourself to them on a sort of like jealousy level of like, you find them really hot, so therefore you're like looking at your own body and thinking, my ass isn't like theirs or my chest isn't like theirs, and that's based on the fact that you find them hot in the first instance, which is something a straight guy would never get.
100%. I can think of 2 guys who I dated where it was, their bodies were just insane to the point where it wasn't good for me because I felt insecure, or it felt like there was a sort of like a lust imbalance, not a lust imbalance, a sort of like an imbalance in desire, right? Which is stupid, really, if you think about it, because if they didn't want to have sex with me, they wouldn't. And they're not thinking, oh my God, my body's so much better than his. Oh my God, I'm perfect and he's not perfect. That's not what they're thinking. But for some reason, we think that's what they're thinking.
Yeah, and that can really like erode a relationship if you start comparing.
100%. You know, I've had sex with guys in the past where they've not wanted to take their t-shirt off, or they can't stay hard because they feel intimidated. And I'm like, this is making me feel uncomfortable because nothing that I've said or done has given you the impression that I'm disappointed in how you look.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting what you said, that like you've found that sometimes like guys get like, you know, they can't stay hard or they get a bit in their own head or whatever. I've spoken to kind of like famous people about this, and they say that when they I know it's a different thing, but it's still interesting to talk about it. Like when they sleep with people, they bring them back, and then they get so intimidated by the fact that they're sleeping with such a person that they just like can't get it up, and they freak out, and they're like, oh, it's so fucking annoying. Like, I'm in this room with you right now. I find you attractive, but you're psyching yourself out. And it's kind of a similar thing, isn't it? It's that people, and we've done it as well, like everybody like gets in their own head over the fact, does this person fancy me enough?
Maybe we're giving too much power to those people that have those ideal bodies in inverted commas. And we're sort of, I don't know, potentially misjudging some of them in a way. Like the celebrities are being misjudged. Like, you know, there's an inferiority sort of imbalance going on that is actually self-created.
I've spoken so much about bodies and stuff, but I've got so many questions on this, but I'll move on.
Okay.
Because there's loads of other stuff I want to talk to you about. One of them is still on the topic of bodies, but obviously like steroids and Ozempic.
Oh yeah.
I'm saying it right. These are like two things which are very popular at the moment. I know a couple of people have tried Ozempic. I actually don't know anyone who's like openly said that they're doing steroids, but you're so in the world of fitness coaching, and are these two things very prevalent at the moment?
I mean, steroids always have been. I don't know whether they're more prevalent now than they have been in the past, but it's also highly stigmatized. I think more so than it should be, because I think there's a lot of lack of education around it, and also it's, for me, it's the same as drinking alcohol, taking drugs, smoking. What's the difference?
And have you seen somebody go from pre to post steroid use, and does it really make somebody look dramatically better than they would if they hadn't have used it?
So one really common misconception about steroids is that they work magic. If you don't do it right, it will do nothing for you, and you will look worse than before you took it. So I can think of a handful of people, which I'm not going to say who they are, who I've seen just irresponsibly just do a cycle of steroids, and they just look puffy, and, you know, their neck looks really fat, and, you know, they don't look good at all because they didn't do their research, they didn't eat well when they were on it, they didn't train hard enough. I think I would never promote or glamorize them at all. But morally, what I mean by they're more stigmatized than they should be is that more people die per year from smoking, drinking, and taking drugs than steroids. I mean, if you're doing G when you go out, no shade, no tea, like, you know, no judgment, like, you do you. I've been there. But you are dicing with death if you're doing a shot of G in a club. And that, for me, if you're shot in G in a club, you can't say a thing about somebody that's taking steroids.
Well, you are in great shape, and I want to ask you more about like your routine. First off, is there anything that you do not put in your body at all?
I don't drink alcohol. When I was 27, I didn't drink for 3 years, and then I got bored and thought I would reintroduce it again, and then was like, actually, that feels pointless. So then I stopped again. So yeah, so I'd say I went for 3 years without it, and then in 2024 stopped again.
Can we talk about your life then before you decided to stop drinking? What would have sort of like a party weekend have looked like for you?
Friday to Monday, Thursday to Monday. Yeah, like, this is what I mean when I said earlier, like, you can't just get satisfaction from your body, because back then I was super lean, and I was like, you know, teaching at Barry's, and, you know, was getting loads of compliments on my body and stuff like that, but like, I was in the darkest place I've ever been, because I was getting zero fulfillment from work and zero fulfillment from myself, or not my relationships, but my relationship with men, for sure. So I was just incredibly self-destructive then. I also was making a lot of money, but from doing minimal work. And at that age, I'm talking like mid-20s, I just didn't have any responsibility, it felt like. And so I just lived for the weekend, because that's all there was to do, I guess. Or like, not that all there was to do, it was what I was prioritizing, I think, to self-medicate.
And was this like getting very drunk, or would it be like rolling from party to taking drugs to like going to club? Like, there's always a club open in London. You know, you could actually just roll into Fire until 10 and then go to Adonis, which is a day party now, you know.
100%. People do. That was me, yeah, for sure.
So you must have had like a moment when you went, I don't want to, well, either you can't handle it anymore, you don't want to do it anymore. What was it for you?
The emotional impact that it was having on me, as somebody who was really ambitious, who wanted a lot for themselves, I was getting nowhere. And I was supposed to be working in fitness. I was supposed to be the vision of health and fitness. It wasn't aligning with my values. I just remember this one time, like looking in the mirror, just in tears. And I used to hang towels over my mirrors so I couldn't look at myself, because the shame of the destruction that I was doing over the weekends, I could physically see it in my skin, in my eyes, on my body. I didn't want to look at myself. And because I have always been so career driven, that is what I think pulled me out of it. You've got to have something. You've got to believe that you're worth more in order to break the cycle.
And why is it, do you think, that with gay men, they can sometimes fall into the lifestyle of partying too much or in an unhealthy way?
Well, this culture is inextricably linked with our history of needing a safe space in order to meet each other, you know? So our coming together as a community is rooted in underground partying at night, in the dark, behind closed doors. And that legacy still lives on. Obviously, we can do it a lot more freely now. But, you know, the reason we go out to these gay clubs is to be around people that we identify with, to see and be seen. And plus it's fun. I'm not gonna lie. Taking drugs and drinking alcohol is fun, you know, but it gets to a point where it's not anymore.
Absolutely. And it's hard to remember that. Like, I've had my own sort of thoughts on how I don't know how to say it, because I'm not like an addict. I'm not like coming from a position of someone who was an addict, but I can come from a position of like half a year sober, hating myself, loathing, all that sort of thing, which I think is very common. Yeah, it's hard not to get swept away with it.
You don't have to be an addict to have a problem with drugs.
No.
Or substances. If you are going out the weekends and you are ruining your headspace throughout the week, underperforming at work, and creating anxiety for yourself regularly, doesn't mean you're an addict, but that's a problem. You don't have maybe a problem with drugs or substances, but you've got a problem, which is the fact that you are choosing to do this to yourself despite negative consequences.
And what's a good reminder for anyone that might be listening to this that struggles with a similar thing, where they're kind of like not an alcoholic, let's talk about alcohol, and then they do really well and they're achieving lots of things when they're not drinking, but then they're in a different mindset and they're like, oh, maybe I want to reintroduce it back into my life. What do you tell yourself when you get that sort of feeling? You might be at an event or a friend's birthday. What is the stopper for you to help you remember why it is you're not drinking?
It would be, what's the motive behind you wanting to do it? You have to analyze yourself in a way and just look at what your motives are, where it's coming from. Should you be in that situation? Do you actually want to be there? If you don't want to be there, don't fucking go. People need to learn to accept, no, why do you not want to come? I don't want to. I just don't fucking want to go. I'm sorry, but
I love that. I love that. Like, to be able to do that, that's a really hard thing to do.
It is. No, trust me. And the closer you are to somebody, the harder it gets, or because you don't want to disappoint that person. But if that person really gives a shit about you, if you don't want to go because you don't feel comfortable in that event, don't go. Like, it is okay. And
I guess people are so scared of losing friends.
I mean, losing friends. I've been doing that a lot this year.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Not me doing it intentionally, but it just naturally happening. And definitely grieving those friendships and mourning them. But also knowing what is important for a friend, for me, going into my 30s, and being okay with the fact that I'll meet new people and I'll have other best friends, and I've got people that I love and I value so much, but it is very hard losing friends. Sometimes it can feel like losing like a boyfriend. You know, it's a fucking relationship at the end of the day. But you wouldn't stay with a boyfriend where it wasn't working out.
So yeah, people drift apart very naturally and very often as you go into your 30s and 40s. But quite a lot of the time that happens invisibly by just like it fizzling out. Is what you're saying is that when you say that you've lost a few friends this year, is that a conscious thing where you've had to have a discussion with them and tell them we aren't the same person? Is it like it's like come into some sort of confrontation, or is it a fizzle out situation?
It's actually been more, some people don't have the tools to be able to have difficult conversations. And when a relationship gets to the point where those difficult conversations need to be had, some people don't want to hear what you've got to say, because then it's like turning a mirror on them saying, look at yourself, look at what you've done. They don't want to take responsibility for their part. They don't want to resolve, because they'd rather just sit with their narrative on the situation, because then they don't have to look at themselves. And so you will find, if you're having conflict with a friend, if the relationship is getting to the point where it's not the same as it used to be, try and talk to that friend. If they don't want to, they're probably not capable of having that conversation. And that's probably all you need to know.
So talking about friendships and talking about things to do that doesn't involve boozing. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you've just recently started a new brand, a gay run club.
Well, I've been coaching just one-to-one clients for the last year and a half under the brand GAYNS. And then in the new year, I decided I wanted to make it a bit more community focused and less solely body focused. So I started a run club and had no idea how it was going to do, but turns out it was needed, because it's been really popular really early on, which is really nice. But yeah, I didn't want it to just be a run club. I wanted it to be a bit more of, I call it goop for gays, right? So it's like culture, fitness and wellness for gays. So the run club, yeah, is one thing. The monthly newsletter, which is like a monthly magazine basically, with articles written by queer journalists, interviews with queers doing cool shit. I just felt like 90% of gay culture was partying, and I was like, where do I go if I want to hang around with a big group of gays that doesn't center around drugs and alcohol, that isn't at fucking 3 a.m. in the morning? Where do I go?
So this is like you've created 120 people meeting weekly. What is it, Saturday mornings?
Saturday mornings, yeah.
Yeah, and you get like a buzz when you're there, and like you feel like it's giving you what you wanted out of where do I go to hang out with gays and be sober. This is giving you what you wanted.
It's definitely fulfilling that need, and it feels fulfilling because people will come up to me and they will say things like, oh, it felt so good to like not go out last night because I knew that I had to wake up for this. Like, if I didn't have this in the morning, I just would have gone out because there was nothing else to do. And that's why I always like to say, I like to call it just another option. I'm not saying you have to go sober, you have to stop taking drugs, you have to stop going out. This isn't anti-club culture. This is just saying, here's another option.
You are an entrepreneur. You're like always thinking about business and brands, and like your brain must be taking over constantly with ideas.
That's painful.
Yeah, but it's also like an impressive thing and a good thing. So before GAYNS, there was Grindhouse. Now, I didn't know that it was actually, as you just described it, it didn't work out, with your words. So can you just summarize what happened when you say it didn't work out?
Well, what I wish somebody told us before we started a business is 90% of startups fail in the first 3 years. So anybody that's listening, for the future, if you're starting a business, or if you're listening and you're an investor in a business, understand the likelihood of this business failing is higher than it succeeding, right? So I didn't know that going into business. So none of us did. So our expectations were up here. And we had really rapid growth at the start, coming out of the pandemic, raised 1.5 million, opened a studio and app. We had a really successful first 2 years, and then it just flatlined because we were never able to raise another round of funding because the venture capital landscape was shit. Basically, nobody was giving money away. Nobody knew where any industry was going post-pandemic, so they were waiting to see. But your business isn't going to wait for you. The money in the bank's going down, so you've got to move fast. And our business was built on the business model of raise money, spend it on what you say you were going to do, raise more money, spend it on what you say you're going to do. Couldn't raise any more money because that was just the way that the markets are moving. It was the way that the consumer was moving post-pandemic. So we tried everything, but we just couldn't make it work. And the business is still around today. Like, it's still going. It's like, it's not, we didn't go bankrupt or anything, but we just couldn't get it. We couldn't build it to what we hoped it would be because it was, on one hand, the absolute right time, right place, but then very quickly was the wrong time in the wrong place.
And I suppose you had this site in Paddington, and that outgoings of keeping a site open must be astronomical, and also something which you can't even comprehend until you actually do it. So yeah, I mean, it's all about money, isn't it, I suppose, and how do you actually keep something like that running?
Yeah,
it's an absolutely huge feat.
Yeah, I mean, you know what rental prices are like in London just for a one-bed flat.
Yeah,
imagine 4,500 square foot space with business rates and service charge fees. It's sickening, really.
And would you say that towards the latter part of Grindhouse closing the site, or however it went down, was that a very stressful period for you?
Yeah, I've had the worst year of my life. In a different way to when I was 27. That was self-inflicted when I was 27. This was the realization that there is so much out of your control. It was very hard to swallow that pill that I really thought this was it. We all thought this was it. We had a TV show signed with BBC Studios Productions that they were shopping around, TV channels to get commissioned. And I was like, this is it. This is what I've been waiting for. And then studio had to close. 3 of the founders decided to leave at that time. It was just like everything came crumbling down before my very eyes. And, I'm still young, I know, 31, but you always hope that by the age of 31, you're going to be on your way, right? And it was that realization of not only have I let down so many investors who believed in us, but I've also got to start again from scratch with something else. How much have I got left in me? I had the same dreams when I was fucking 21 years old. I'm 31, still not achieved them. It was just a lot of like learning lessons, having acceptance around what you can control, what you can't control. That's probably why I started drinking again last year. Let's be honest, to alleviate some of that stress. Losing friends, losing the business. My biological dad died last year as well, all at the same time. So it was just a lot of like uncertainty and heaviness and loss all happening sort of in one time period. And now I'm just sort of at a point where I'm sort of a bit like throwing my hands up in the air a little bit. I'm like doing what I can. I'm trying to move more in the direction of what sets my heart on fire. Because I don't want to waste another 10 years.
Well, firstly, I'm sorry to hear it's been such an awful year. Do you reflect on that experience and the ride that you went on, because it was an incredibly amazing one and something which some people can claim that they've never had to do, go to venture capitalists, start a business with your mates, have a site, like the amount of learning and the life experience and those things that happen to you, is there like a huge sense of pride and a sense of achievement of it, or is there just this sort of like huge disappointment?
I'm an optimist, right? So I can look at those. I can look at the last, 4 years and go, I learned a lot. Stuff maybe I didn't want to have to learn, but learned it anyway. I think it's natural to have a little bit of regret. Hindsight is a wonderful thing. Oh, if only we'd done that. If only we'd done that. If only we'd done that. Well, we didn't have that knowledge at the time. We were doing the best we could at the time with the information that we had and were being given. Yeah, as I said, there's things I regret, but at the end of the day, I'm so glad I went through that experience. And even if it feels really hard now to accept some of the outcomes, there's nothing I could do to change that. So I've got to find acceptance around it eventually.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you can, as you are doing with your own business venture, take all the good out of it.
Take all the lessons and apply
Yeah,
it to
and channel it into this.
For sure.
I mean, this one is a solo project, whereas the last one was sort of like a group thing. So there must be a completely different
I'm never,
learning curve.
Never mixing friends and business again.
Really? Did it get messy?
Podcast? Don't do it.
Really? God.
Yeah.
It's like being in a band almost, is it? And then you go solo and then you reflect, and it's actually so...
Well, yeah, bands are businesses, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you really value those friends, it's both amazing to go through that experience with them because you're going through them with it together. But there's so much to business that is a lot more serious than a friendship.
It's like not fun conversations that you have to be very serious, which friendships...
Yeah, and also the dynamics of businesses have to have, reporting lines. Somebody's got to tell somebody what to do. Do you want your best friend telling you what to do? Probably not. So go into business with somebody who has a completely different skill set to you, who you could tell each other what to do, and who, if the going got tough, like, you wouldn't actually care if you weren't still friends at the end of it.
So you're quite a social media user, if that's the term, right?
Yeah.
So obviously you need to be for your job and all that sort of thing. You hate doing it, right?
I hate it.
Why do you hate it?
Because you're a slave to the algorithm.
Right. What does that mean?
Meaning the content that you want to put out there and that you feel is valuable won't get the reach that it deserves because the algorithm will prioritize sort of 7-second looping reels with a stupid sound and a trend and all of that stuff. So the only way to grow your followers is by understanding the algorithm, working the algorithm.
What's an example of a piece of content that you don't care about but works really well on social media?
Put out a reel the other day, 7 seconds, me with my top off, flexing, saying trying to get bottoms to understand if you eat 80% whole foods, 30 grams of fiber a day, and 1.8 times your body weight in kilograms in grams of protein a day, you will annihilate body fat, build muscle, and fix your gut health, right? These words, annihilate body fat, build muscle, alongside a video of me flexing my muscles, it got nearly 1 million views, thousands of saves, thousands of likes, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of comments. And part of the fact that it got so much traction is because it was quite polarizing. So people, you're having to create posts nowadays that cause arguments and divide people, because any negative comment is still engagement and it's driving your engagement up. So that was like such an oversimplified blueprint of how to, change your lifestyle. But I had to frame it in a way that was feeding into what the consumer desires, which is burn body fat, build muscle, and it pops off. And it's like, but it's just such shite content.
And I guess anything where you're showing skin always does better.
Oh yeah,
it does. Yeah,
sex sells. As much as we hate that fact, it does. And that's what I mean. It's like, I know what is going to get engagement on Instagram. And if I want to build my followers in order to, make money from my coaching and expose myself to, new potential clients, so that I can put a roof over my head and reinvest in GAYNS, I've got to do what I've got to do to get my profile out in front of more people.
Do you get nervous before you post anything?
Yeah.
What's like an example of something that would make you nervous to hit post on?
I was nervous to post that because I knew anybody that has a sensibility around body image would fucking hate that post. And they did. And people came for me. But the amount of DMs that I got from that video asking for me to coach people.
Really? Wow, okay.
So it's like, it sucks really that you have to feed into people's insecurities in order to help them then fix their insecurities.
Would you ever do OnlyFans?
No.
Sleep about that. I won't even ask you why.
No tea, no shade. I think sex work is work. Like, if you are making so much more money than me, go off, sis. I am cheering from the sidelines. But I don't really fancy it myself.
Some people do like a mild OnlyFans where they don't actually even get naked, right? So yeah, like some people do the soft entry into OnlyFans, don't they? When they just like, you start paying for their content because they put out a lot of images of them wearing like, sexy underwear and stuff. Yeah. So I guess that's also just like a no, just not for you.
Not for
no.
me.
Although I completely agree.
It's a business. Like you think that you're just going to sort of like launch an OnlyFans and watch the money roll in. No, you've got to be posting about that shit all the time. You've got to be filming new and innovative content. You've got to be working with other influencers in order to cross-pollinate your communities. Like, it's a fucking full-time job. I've already got one of those. Don't need another one.
Yeah, and I guess that's a whole nother level of nervousness to posting. Imagine if you... I always think like OnlyFans people must... Like, to actually get over the line, I would feel so nervous to start posting.
Actually, I don't know whether it would take some of it away a little bit, because what I find is the difference between Instagram and TikTok is that because Instagram people follow you, in order to follow somebody, you have to buy into what they're selling. I don't mean in a monetary sense. I mean just like, you buy into their authenticity or whatever it is that you're buying into. So when you post something, you will get quite a positive response in the comments from what you've posted. Whereas on TikTok, it goes viral on the For You page, which is a bunch of people who've never seen you before in your life. They don't even on TikTok comment to you. They comment talking about you in the comments.
Right.
They'll say like, this guy looks like a twat or something like that. And it's like, well,
Sorry
this guy that you're commenting on is me. This is my post. Do you know what I mean? So you open yourself up to so much more negativity, I think, on TikTok, because...
Do you read the comments?
Yeah.
Oh, you do?
I don't get that many. I don't get that many that I don't have time to read them.
Right.
I read them all. So for OnlyFans, if there's a paywall, then somebody's only going to pay for your content if they really want to consume it.
Yeah.
and therefore they're probably going to be nice to you, and they're probably going to be quite positive, and you probably get some crazy people, but generally it's I can't imagine somebody's going to pay £15 a month to be a cunt to someone.
No, unless that's their kink. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be.
I mean, if they were paying me, maybe I wouldn't be that fussed.
Yeah, exactly. Call me cunt all you want.
I want to end by talking about you're in a relationship.
Yes.
Which I'm saying it in that tone of voice because you said that this is the first one you've ever had.
Yeah.
Why is it that you think that you went, what is it, all your 20s without being in a relationship?
I have never been somebody that feels like they need one. And also relationships, you have to prioritize them. And I was so selfish in my 20s, and it just was not a priority for me. And it was also not something that I would have been responsible enough to give my time to and respect that person. Whereas when I, then stopped partying, I suddenly had space for it, right? So then it took sort of like a few years from stopping partying to then actually look at my relationship with men and my relationship with myself and work through a lot in order to get to the place where I was capable of having a relationship. And even now, like, it's still hard work. Like, when I did stop partying, I was like, okay, now I'm ready for a relationship. Now I want one. And then so suddenly I was almost yearning for one in a way, thinking that was going to solve a little piece to the puzzle. But it doesn't. The problems that you have when you're single, you don't have the same problems when you're in a relationship. You just have different problems. And I'm not saying problems with the relationship itself. I mean, I've got such a identity problem with my independence. So that's a problem. Do you know what I mean? So it's like all of the, you think...
Well, like, you're staunchly independent and you find it hard to let that ease even slightly.
Mm-hmm.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Like, well, there's something you're aware of and you can talk about.
Yeah. I love being an open book. I just think it's so helpful.
What do you mean, open book?
Like, I just there's just nothing for me that I feel like is off limits to talk about.
Oh, telling with your partner, you mean?
No, with anyone.
Oh, I know, I do get that sense from you, which I do really like. As in, it's really easy to interview you because I feel like I'm not like treading on eggshells with you.
No, I don't know. Like, if I think about the media that I've consumed over the years that I think's been really helpful, like, it's people that have been honest.
I want to ask you about PDA.
Yeah.
So this is something which I've struggled with, being in a relationship. And now that you're in a relationship, how are you with PDA in general? Like kissing in public, feeling safe to hold hands?
I always hold his hand. But our fingers are too fat to actually interlock like this. So I have to like hold his two fingers like that.
Right. That's cute.
I mean, I'm a gobshite. So if anyone did say anything, I'd fucking love it. I'd be like, come on then.
Yeah.
Let's get into it, babes.
Yeah.
I'd get a bit of pleasure out of making somebody feel uncomfortable just by like holding hands or pecking somebody on the lips. Mm-hmm. Because that's their shit that they need to deal with. But like, I don't want to see even a gay couple sitting opposite me on the tube, sticking their tongues down each other's throat. I mean, there's a time and a place. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I think that would make anybody uncomfortable, regardless of what your sexual identity was. But yeah, if it was just, what straight people do, hold hands, kiss across the dinner table, any of that, if somebody was feeling uncomfortable about me doing that, I'd love it. I'd revel in it.
What would you say?
Eat it up, bitch.
Have you seen Notting Hill? You're like the Julia Roberts who walks back up to the table. Have you seen that film?
I've seen it so many years ago. I can't even remember.
Oh, God, come on, Connor. It's like
really
the best
embarrassing,
film,
isn't it?
Okay, I have had so much of a time, and thank you so much. And I'm very excited to see what you do with GAYNS. I know it's going to be very cool.
Thank you. I hope so. And honestly, thank you for the chat. I've enjoyed every second. I hope that I've shared some valuable stuff, and yeah, somebody's got something from this.